So look at Anthony Ryder from South Lyon, Michigan, recently selected as the Lions 2020 Fan of the Year. He has a passion about sports broadcasting.
With the 112th selection in the 2021 NFL Draft, the Detroit Lions select Amon-Ra St. Brown, wide receiver, USC. One pride, baby! Yeah!
What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another Detroit Lions video. Now, the Detroit Lions started the season 1-6. They were not very good. They were arguably the worst statistical defense of all time in the NFL, and they were not looking very strong as a football team. However, since the Detroit Lions have kind of found their footing, since they've gotten healthy and changed some defensive schemes, some of their players have developed a little bit, they have turned in to a really, really good NFL team, currently sitting at 7-7 after a hard-fought, gritty victory in New York versus the New York Jets to improve their record to 7-7, getting back to 500 for the second time this season. And the Detroit Lions, with 3 games left to go, currently have over 50% odds given by the NFL to end up making the playoffs as a wildcard team and potentially making a run at the NFL's Lombardi Trophy. So today I want to talk about that particular thing. I want to talk about the Lions' remaining schedule, how they've been playing, how they might continue to play, grow, and develop, and talk about what are the real odds that the Lions are going to make the playoffs. What's the real odds that the Lions are going to win out to finish the year, finish the season at 10-7, and potentially sneak in as a wild card team at the 7 or maybe even the potential 6 seed. So that's what we're going to talk about today, as the Detroit Lions have just 3 games remaining. But before we get into that, I want to talk about how the Lions got here, because as I said, they have really turned their season around. They started as a 1-6 football team, losing 1-score games to the now 1-seed Philadelphia Eagles, the 11-3 Minnesota Vikings, the Dallas Cowboys, who was not a 1-score game, but was very, very close until the very end of that game, losing a 1-score game to Seattle, losing a 1-score game to the Miami Dolphins, and really being close in a lot of games, but also not being so close, right? They were statistically and scoreboard-wise very close to some of these teams, but they were allowing the most yards in the NFL, they were allowing the most points in the NFL, they were not getting turnovers, and they were statistically the worst defense, not only in the NFL this year, but one of the worst statistical defenses of all time. Now, since that was the case, since the final loss to the Miami Dolphins, the Detroit Lions ended up firing their defensive backs coach, made some defensive scheme changes, got healthy, and got some more players within their rotation, as well as discovering a few hidden gems within the Detroit Lions 2022 draft. Now, since that time, the Detroit Lions went on to beat the Green Bay Packers in a really low-scoring defensive slugfest at Ford Field. They went on to outscore the Chicago Bears in a shootout at Soldier Field. They dominated the New York Giants in MetLife Stadium. They lost a really close game on Thanksgiving to the Buffalo Bills on a last-second field goal on an improbable drive. They then went back home and got a huge victory over the Jacksonville Jaguars by winning by over 26 points. Then the Lions stayed at home and ended up beating the division rival Minnesota Vikings by a 12-point margin, as well as now going on the road back to MetLife to play the second team in New York, the New York Jets, where they walked out with a 20-17 victory. The Lions are one of the hottest teams in the NFL right now, taking down multiple playoff contenders over the last month and a half, and with their only loss coming to the current AFC number 1 seeded Buffalo Bills on a last-second drive in a game-winning field goal. They took that Bills team down to the wire, and if Josh Allen didn't have an explosive arm, if Stephon Diggs was not a top 5, maybe even a top 3 wide receiver in the NFL, that game likely goes to overtime, and at that point, it's anybody's game. However, the Detroit Lions are 6-1 over their last 7 games. They are one of the hottest teams in the NFL, taking down multiple playoff contenders over that time span, and now all that stands in their way from making the playoffs as a 10-7 football team is the Carolina Panthers, who are 5-8, the Green Bay Packers, as well as the currently 3-11 Chicago Bears. There are 3 teams standing in their way after the Lions have taken down multiple winning organizations over the last month and a half. 3 losing teams stand in the way of a 10-7 record, a wild card berth, and a potential shot at the Lions' first playoff victory since 1991. Now, with that being said, we're going to get into the potential schedule, as the Lions this next weekend are going to travel to Charlotte, Carolina to take on the gritty, hardworking, tough Carolina Panthers. Now, I think this is the hardest game remaining on the Detroit Lions schedule, tied with the Green Bay Packers. I think the Green Bay Packers have a stronger home field advantage, but I think Carolina, as far as purely talented-wise, as far as pure talent, is the hardest team the Lions are going to have to face, and I think it will be the most difficult matchup the Lions have on the remainder of their schedule. Despite Carolina's 5-8 record, they are not a bad football team. They are a team that plays really strong defense, does not allow a lot of points, has, for whatever reason, somehow found some magic within Sam Darnold and PJ Walker, whoever might play in this Lions game next week. And they are a team that, despite not necessarily being the most talented roster, despite not being, up there and having a ton of superstars, is a team that fights really close every single week and continues to play really, really strong football. Now, the Lions, I think, are a better football team in this game. I think the Lions should win this game. I think the Lions are more talented. I think they are better coached. I think they are an all-around better team, as their record and strength of victory would indicate. However, this is not going to be an easy game for the Detroit Lions. I give the Lions about a 60-40 chance of winning this game. If the elements are there, if the rain is going, if there are strong winds, I think Jared Goff could struggle again, like we saw both times at MetLife, and really every time we've seen Jared Goff outside of an enclosed stadium. Now, the Panthers, I do not think, are the strongest team in the world. I do not think they are the best team, and I do not think they are better than the Detroit Lions, but this game will not be easy. This is not going to be a blowout. I do not believe this is going to be a low scoring, probably a very gritty, a very tight win. And if the Lions play like they played last week, there is no guarantee that they will walk out of Charlotte as the victors. Now, after that, the Lions come back home. They come back to their cozy den in Ford Field, and they take on the 3-11 Chicago Bears. The Lions are better than Chicago Bears. The Bears have lost a lot of games in a row. The Bears are not a great football team. They are 3-11 for a reason, and they are a team that I think the Lions should beat. The Bears at this point, although their players and coaches are not tanking, because that is obviously just not a thing that teams do in the NFL realistically, they are not a good football team. The Lions should be able to win this game, but again, that division aspect of it, right? Them being in the same division, playing this team for the second time in a row, or playing this team for the second time on the season, does leave some room for error, right? Every division game seems like it could be an upset, and that is the beauty of division games, right? When you're the worst team, there's still a chance because that's your division rival, right? You know that team. You know how they like to play. You know what they want to do, and you know how to take that away and make them adjust and adapt. So I'm not going to say the Lions are guaranteed this win either, although I think this is the easiest game remaining on the Detroit Lions schedule. And that, of course, I think would give the Lions about a 70% chance. I think Justin Fields is a very good, dynamic, and dangerous quarterback. I think he can beat anybody on any day with his legs, with his arm, with his playmaking ability. Justin Fields has to really break open a game like we saw last week versus the 1-seeded Philadelphia Eagles. Justin Fields looked great. He had a phenomenal touchdown run. He looked pretty good. His numbers are really good from that game as a passer. He is a dangerous quarterback who's working with pretty limited weapons at this point. So anything can happen versus the Chicago Bears, but I think this is the Lions' easiest game moving forward, and I think they should win this game, improving to hopefully 9-7 on the season. And then the Lions travel to Green Bay. They go to Lambeau in the last game of the season, maybe potentially getting a primetime game to end their year and having the opportunity to go make the playoffs. Now, technically, mathematically, the Lions could have a playoff spot locked up in this game, and this game would not really matter all that much to the Detroit Lions. However, likely that is not the case. Likely there will be a tight race to the end with the Giants and the Commanders and the Seahawks, and the Lions will need a 10th win to clinch a playoff spot, and that's all going to come down to Lions versus Green Bay at Lambeau Field in the last game of the NFL season. Now, this game, again, I think is going to be very tough for the Detroit Lions. And I don't think this is going to be a gimme game. And despite the fact that the Lions beat the Green Bay Packers in a low-scoring contest earlier in the season, that does not guarantee that the Detroit Lions are going to walk out of this game with a victory. Lambeau is a very tough environment to play in. Jared Goff has not really shown the ability to play through the elements, and when you get Lambeau mixed with December or January, elements are inevitable. This team, again, I don't think is better than the Detroit Lions, but I think the factors of wind and I think the factors of elements could really hurt the Detroit Lions in this matchup and potentially cost them a playoff berth and a playoff run if that is to occur. So, talking about all of these teams, right? You look at the schedule, you look at the record, and you say, okay, it's losing teams. It's the 5-8 Carolina Panthers. It is the, I believe, 5-8 or 5-9 Green Bay Packers. It is the 3-11 Chicago Bears going up against a 500 team that is the hottest team in the NFL right now. But that doesn't mean the Lions are guaranteed anything as of right now. 10-7 is achievable. 10-7 should be, I think, the expectation for this Lions team because the Lions are the better team in all three of these matchups. The Lions are the more talented team. The Lions are the better coach team in each of these matchups. But that does not guarantee them anything. Home field advantage and having elements to play through really could hurt the Detroit Lions like we saw last week versus the New York Jets. And the Lions, despite having the great opportunity to win out, make the playoffs, and potentially go for their first playoff win in over 2 decades, still have a long way to go, still have a lot of work to put in. So, if I had to put a guess on it, if I had to say what is the Lions' likely record to finish the season, I do think they'll finish 10-7. I do think they will win out because I think they are the better team. I think they are the hotter team. And I think it's really going to come down to Lions versus Green Bay in Lambeau in January, not for the division, but for one team to make the playoffs and one team to spoil it. So with all that being said, that's all I got for you guys today. Let me know down in the comments below, how do you feel about this matchup? How do you feel about the remaining 3 games on the schedule? Do you have confidence the Lions can go 3-0, win out, and make the playoffs? Or do you think the Lions are going to stumble a little bit towards the end? Maybe lose in Lambeau, maybe lose in Carolina, or maybe have a division upset versus the Chicago Bears that keeps them out of the playoffs. I'd be very curious what you guys think, but with all that being said, that's all I got for you guys today. Thank you guys so much for watching, and until next time, and as always, go Lions!